Right now, across the globe, an estimated 40% of menopausal women are regularly sleeping in a completely different bed or even, a different room than their partner.
Which is a massive statistic.
It is. And I mean, if you listen to traditional societal norms, you might assume that means 40% of these relationships are just fundamentally failing.
Right. Like the marriage is on the rocks.
Exactly. But the clinical data and, well, the psychological research we're looking at today tell a completely different story. It turns out sleeping apart might be the exact biological intervention that is saving them.
Yeah, the statistics are a real wake-up call to how little we actually understand about mechanics of human sleep,
Yeah.
especially, how it intersects with the aging process and long-term relationships.
Absolutely. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are unpacking a massive stack of sources today.
We really are.
Yeah, we've got clinical guidelines from the British Menopause Society, marital satisfaction studies out of Pakistan, data from Stanford Lifestyle Medicine, and insights from global sleep clinics.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to explore the turbulent intersection of menopausal sleep disruption, relationship dynamics, and sleeping arrangements.
Right, because it really is a turbulent intersection.
Oh, yeah. We want to figure out exactly what happens when biology turns the shared marital bed into a battleground and, how couples are navigating it. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the biological reality. Because before we can understand why couples are fleeing to the guest room, we have to look at what is actually happening in the body.
Which is a lot.
Yeah. Stanford Lifestyle Medicine notes that between 40% and 60% of women in perimenopause and menopause experience significant sleep difficulties. But, I always thought of the major menopausal hormones, like estrogen, strictly in terms of reproduction. How does a reproductive hormone have the power to completely break someone's sleep architecture?
Yeah, that is the core misconception. And it's exactly why so many people are caught off guard by this. Estrogen is heavily involved in reproduction, absolutely, but it is also the body's master temperature regulator.
Okay.
Yeah, it helps control the hypothalamus, which acts as your brain's internal thermostat. So as estrogen levels begin to decline and wildly fluctuate during perimenopause, that thermostat becomes incredibly unstable.
It just breaks down.
Right. The brain suddenly perceives that the body is overheating when it actually isn't, and that triggers this massive release of adrenaline to try and cool you down.
Wow.
Yeah, so that is the physiological mechanism behind the sudden drenching heat of a night sweat.
So you are essentially getting an adrenaline spike in the middle of the night.
Exactly.
That alone would jolt anyone awake.
Right.
But that is only half of the hormonal equation, right? Because the sources also talk extensively about progesterone.
Yes, and progesterone is arguably just as critical for sleep maintenance. In the brain, progesterone converts into a metabolite that stimulates a neurotransmitter called GABA.
Okay, GABA.
Yeah. You can think of GABA as the brain's internal braking system. It slows down neural activity, reduces anxiety, and promotes a really deep sedative state. That's basically what allows you to transition from light sleep into deep restorative sleep.
Right, so if GABA is the brakes, then a drop in progesterone means those brakes are suddenly failing.
That's a great way to put it, yes.
Which would perfectly explain the clinical notes from UBI we reviewed. Like, women report not just waking up, but waking up with racing thoughts, high anxiety, and just this complete inability to settle back down.
Exactly. It's a very active wake state.
It's like trying to sleep in a room where the thermostat is completely broken while someone is randomly pulling the fire alarm.
That paints an incredibly accurate picture of the neurological state, yeah. But we also have to look at the structural changes happening in the body, which brings us to a medical nuance that is honestly frequently misdiagnosed.
Okay, what's that?
Well, postmenopause, a woman's risk for obstructive sleep apnea, or OSA, rises dramatically to match the risk profile of men.
Wait, really? Sleep apnea? I always associated that with the classic stereotype like an overweight guy snoring loudly enough to shake the walls. How does menopause suddenly trigger a structural breathing issue?
It comes back to the loss of those same two hormones, estrogen and progesterone. Together, they act as a sort of muscular scaffolding.
Okay.
They help maintain the muscle tone and tension in your upper airway. So when those hormones deplete, that scaffolding weakens. During deep sleep, when your muscles naturally relax, gravity simply causes the upper airway tissues to cave in and block the flow of oxygen.
The airway becomes physically collapsible.
Precisely. The brain senses the drop in oxygen, hits the panic button, and physically jolts the body to gasp for air. And what is insidious here is that women often do not present with that loud, classic snoring you mentioned.
Oh, they don't.
No. The UBI clinical data shows that women's sleep apnea often presents simply as fragmented sleep, frequent awakenings, morning headaches, and really severe brain fog.
That is wild.
Right. So a doctor might look at a woman complaining of daytime exhaustion and nighttime awakenings and mistakenly diagnose her with, say, primary insomnia or anxiety disorder, completely missing that her airway is collapsing dozens of times an hour.
Wow. And I mean, if a woman's area is collapsing that frequently, the physical movement, the gasping, the tossing and turning to regulate temperature, none of that happens in a vacuum.
No, it certainly doesn't.
It is actively pulling the person lying, 6 inches away from her out of their own deep REM sleep. What does that mutual sleep deprivation actually do to the psychology of a couple?
The impact is profound, and the data from Thrive Sleep Clinic lays out exactly why. Sleep is foundational to how we process emotions and relate to other humans.
Right.
When individuals are consistently reaching the deep REM and slow wave stages of sleep, they exhibit higher empathy, better emotional regulation, and superior collaborative problem solving. But sharing a bed fundamentally challenges that, even under ideal circumstances.
Yeah, the numbers in the data were wild. Like, even completely healthy sleepers wake their partner up an average of 5.5 times a night just by shifting around.
Exactly. Now layer in menopausal symptoms. If one partner has insomnia, those disruptions jump to an average of 7 times a night.
Wow.
And if undiagnosed sleep apnea enters the mix, the healthy partner might be disturbed 9 or more times an hour.
An hour. That's brutal.
It is. The bed transforms from a place of restoration into a nocturnal endurance event. Both partners are waking up with totally depleted empathy reserves.
Which brings me to a specific study from our sources that completely rewired how I view this dynamic. There was a psychological study published in the journal MDPI that looked at 180 married couples in Pakistan.
Yes, a very revealing study.
Yeah. The researchers were measuring how menopausal symptoms affected overall marital satisfaction. And the data showed that the wives' internal psychological menopausal symptoms, so the anxiety, the brain fog, the irritability, were the primary predictor of the husband's feeling dissatisfied with the marriage. Wait, the wife's distress predicts the husband's dissatisfaction. That sounds like a recipe for deep resentment.
Oh, it absolutely is. What's fascinating here is that it illustrates a devastating psychological feedback loop. It's largely driven by what relationship researchers call the knowledge gap.
The knowledge gap.
Right. Amira Health's research on couples highlights this heavily. In many heterosexual relationships, the male partner simply does not have a working understanding of the physiological reality of menopause. They don't know about the depleted GABA or the failing thermostat or the collapsing airway scaffolding.
Right, because they can't see those things on an X-ray or blood test. All they see is the outward manifestation of that internal chaos.
Exactly. They see a partner who is suddenly irritable, distant, or constantly exhausted. And because of the knowledge gap, the partner misinterprets these profound biological shifts as behavioral flaws or, personal slights.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so a hot flash, waking the wife up, causing her to throw off the covers and pace the room, isn't seen as a medical event. It's interpreted as a mood or a disruption of the husband's own sleep.
They internalize it. Like the partner thinks, why are you acting this way toward me? Instead of what is happening inside your body.
Exactly. And because the partner is also chronically sleep deprived from the shared bed, their patience is practically non-existent. So the wife feels unsupported and entirely unseen in her physical struggle, while the husband feels rejected and frustrated by the behavioral changes.
That is so tough.
It creates a widening gulf of emotional distance. Mutual exhaustion just breeds mutual resentment.
Yeah, and when you combine biological sleep disruption with that level of creeping relationship resentment, it makes total sense that couples are looking for drastic logistical interventions. Which leads us to the phenomenon we touched on at the very beginning, the rise of the sleep divorce.
And honestly, calling it a divorce is highly inflammatory considering the actual outcomes we see in the data.
Oh, it's a terrible branding problem for a very practical solution. Yeah. According to a 2025 global sleep study cited by HCF, 18% of all couples now sleep in separate rooms.
Yep.
And as we noted from the Luxurious magazine article, an incredible 40% of menopausal women regularly sleep in a separate bed.
I love the analogy we were discussing earlier. Calling this a divorce is as overly dramatic as calling having your own bathroom a hygiene divorce.
Aren't exactly.
You're just utilizing different spaces for a bodily function.
The clinical perspective supports that analogy entirely.
Well,
A sleep divorce is not a symptom of a relationship in decay. For many couples, it is the exact intervention that stabilizes the marriage.
the HCF research highlighted several case studies, including a couple named Jennifer and Fraser. They moved in together deeply in love, but Fraser was an incredibly loud snorer who naturally woke up at 4:30 in the morning.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Within a week, Jennifer was facing severe cognitive sleep deprivation.
And I mean, if they had stubbornly clung to the idea that good couples sleep in the same bed,
Yeah.
they likely would have imploded.
Without a doubt. But they recognized the biological incompatibility. They initially tried sleeping apart just on weekdays to preserve their work performance, but quickly realized permanent separation was better for their emotional connection.
Interesting.
Yeah, as Jennifer described it, prioritizing quality sleep actually fortified their bond. When they reunite in the morning, they are interacting as the best, most well-rested versions of themselves. You entirely eliminate the subconscious anger of lying awake in the dark, glaring at the person snoring next to you.
Okay, but we have to address the elephant in the separate bedroom.
Okay, let's hear it.
The immediate assumption anyone makes when they hear separate beds is that physical intimacy must completely evaporate. Like, if you aren't physically next to each other for 8 hours a day, how do you maintain a sex life?
It is the most common fear cited by couples considering the move, yet the data completely contradicts it.
Really?
Yeah. Interviews with hundreds of sleep divorce couples, alongside insights from sexual health experts, reveal that their sex lives often remain stable or they actively improve.
Wow.
The mechanics behind this are twofold. First, there is a simple biological reality fatigue is a massive libido killer. When you restore deep sleep, energy levels and hormone regulation naturally improve, which directly boosts libido.
That makes sense. You actually have the energy to want physical connection. But what is the second mechanism? Because physically crossing a hallway seems like a barrier.
The second mechanism is deeply psychological. Sleeping apart breaks what relationship experts call the familiarity rut. Think about the dynamics of sharing a bed every single night for decades. Physical touch can easily become the ambient background noise of a relationship. Oh, I see.
Yeah, a leg brushing against a leg, a habitual goodnight kiss. It is passive. Intimacy becomes an assumption born entirely out of proximity. You're just there.
It's like having a television playing in the background. You're not actively watching it, just making noise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when you have separate bedrooms, physical intimacy requires deliberate intention. You have to walk across the hallway, you have to knock on the door, you have to actively choose to visit each other's spaces.
That changes the whole dynamic.
It transforms an overture for intimacy from a passive default into a clear romantic invitation. It brings a level of dating-like intentionality back into a long-term marriage.
That reframes the entire concept. Separate bedrooms turn intimacy into a deliberate conversation rather than ambient noise.
Yes.
But, I mean, as logical as that sounds, you can't just grab your pillow, announce you're leaving, and storm off to the guest room in the middle of the night. If someone does that, the partner is almost guaranteed to view it as a punishment. If we connect this to the bigger picture of relationship health, intention and communication dictate the success of this transition. If a sleep divorce is initiated abruptly or in a moment of anger, it will absolutely be internalized as romantic rejection.
Right.
The sources we reviewed provide a very clear roadmap for implementing this transition successfully. The first step is framing. It must be communicated as a compassionate health intervention explicitly for the purpose of sleep quality.
It is a joint strategy against a shared enemy insomnia, rather than one partner abandoning the other.
Exactly. And the experts suggest starting with a trial run. Frame it as an experiment. Try it for 2 weeks to see if subjective sleep quality and daytime energy improve. Second, you have to aggressively schedule time for both sexual and non-sexual intimacy.
Scheduling sounds unromantic, but I imagine it's crucial if you no longer have that built-in proximity.
It is essential. For many couples, lying side by side in the 20 minutes before falling asleep is their only dedicated conversation time. If you move to separate rooms, you must replicate that.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Couples successfully navigating this often schedule, say, Sunday morning pillow talk, where they intentionally climb into one bed simply to cuddle, drink coffee, and catch up. Third, the physical spaces must be equal. If one partner remains in the luxurious master suite while the other is relegated to a lumpy futon in a cold basement, someone is going to feel banished. Both rooms must feel like chosen sanctuaries.
Right, it has to feel like an upgrade for both people.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean for the listener who's hearing all of this, identifying with the sleep deprivation, but simply cannot or will not do separate rooms? Maybe they live in a one-bedroom apartment, or they just genuinely love the comfort of sleeping next to their partner despite the disruptions. What are the alternatives?
Well, there are highly effective logistical and medical alternatives that do not require vacating the room. From a purely logistical standpoint, a strategy wildly popular in Scandinavian countries is gaining global traction. It's the to-duna, or to-duvet trick.
The two-duna trick. Okay.
Instead of fighting a nightly tug of war over one massive blanket, which invariably traps heat and exacerbates menopausal sweating, the couple uses two separate single-sized duvets on a shared mattress.
That is brilliant in its simplicity. The partner who runs cold can cocoon in a heavy down duvet, and the menopausal partner can use a light, breathable blanket. They can throw it off during a hot flash without freezing their partner. It's like a microsleep divorce.
That's a great term for it. It isolates the thermal environment. You can combine that with high-quality white noise machines to mask the sound of restless movement and custom earplugs to mitigate mild snoring.
Right.
However, we must stress that logistics only solve half the puzzle. Two blankets will not fix a collapsing airway or plummeting GABA levels.
That's right, of course. You have to actually treat the root biological cause of the sleep disruption. So what do the clinical guidelines from the British Menopause Society recommend for treating the core issues?
The guidelines heavily emphasize two primary interventions. The first is non-pharmacological cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, or CBTI.
Wait, I have to ask. If a woman's airway is collapsing or her internal thermostat is triggering a massive adrenaline dump, how is talking to a therapist going to fix that? You can't just outthink a hot flash.
You cannot outthink the hot flash, no. But you can fundamentally alter the brain's neurological reaction to it. Over time, waking up drenched in sweat creates a conditioned fear response.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the brain starts associating the bed itself with anxiety and wakefulness. CBTI utilizes techniques like sleep restriction, temporarily compressing your sleep window, to build an overwhelming biological drive for sleep and stimulus control.
What's stimulus control?
That forces you to leave the bed if you are awake for more than 20 minutes.
Oh, so it breaks the psychological association between the mattress and the panic of being awake. It trains the brain that the bed is only for sleep.
Exactly. It rebuilds the sleep architecture that the hormonal shifts destabilized. For the physical symptoms themselves, the primary medical recommendation is hormone replacement therapy, or HRT.
Which goes back to what we discussed at the beginning. By replacing the depleted estrogen and progesterone, you are effectively repairing the internal thermostat and rebuilding the muscular scaffolding in the airway.
Precisely. You are treating the underlying endocrinological deficiency rather than merely band-aiding the symptoms with over-the-counter sleep aids.
Right.
Now, HRT is not appropriate for every single patient, and it requires a thorough risk-benefit analysis with a physician. But for a vast number of women, it is profoundly effective at restoring normal sleep physiology.
So to synthesize all of these distinct threads for you, the listener's sleep is not an indulgent luxury that you can just tough your way through without consequences. It is an absolute biological necessity. And the transition through menopause completely rewrites the rules of how your body achieves that rest, from your internal temperature regulation to the physical structure of your breathing airway. Successfully navigating that physiological storm requires deep empathy, crystal clear communication, and an open-minded willingness to challenge societal norms about what a successful marriage looks like behind closed doors.
Absolutely.
Whether you find your solution through separate beds, the Scandinavian two-blanket trick, targeted cognitive therapy, or medical hormone replacement, the ultimate objective remains the same: getting back to the restorative rest that makes us functional, compassionate human beings.
This raises an important question, though, doesn't it?
What's that?
Well, we as a culture hold on to this incredibly romanticized ideal of the shared marital bed as the ultimate, undeniable symbol of relationship success.
Right.
But given everything we've unpacked today, given that our internal thermostats, our hormone levels, and our sleep architectures naturally and drastically diverge as we age, could it be that the traditional lifelong expectation of sleeping in the exact same bed is actually a modern historical anomaly rather than a biological ideal for human relationships?
Wow, that is a fascinating thought to leave on. Maybe we've been clinging to a picture of intimacy that doesn't actually align with our biology. There isn't a single rigid template of what sharing a life is supposed to look like. We just need to navigate the biology together and ultimately find a way to rest.